July 10, 2018 was a day like any other, except that Scott Griffith and his wife Nancy were out exploring the untamed beauty of Wrangell, St. Elias National Park and Preserve. The couple had been together for almost 30 years, and each of those years had been filled with lots of adventures. That Tuesday, Scott and Nancy decided to hike the Root Glacier Trail, one of the most popular trails in the park. The trail extends north from Kennecott, an abandoned mining camp located inside the park, to access Root Glacier. The walk is moderate and only about 1.5 miles from Kennecott, but it has many highlights, such as glacier viewing, mining artifacts, and other breathtaking views. But while the terrain of the trail is relatively level, with only moderate changes in elevation, the Root Glacier itself is a whole other deal. It can be very slippery, which makes it dangerous for visitors who lack proper equipment. But Scott Griffith was ready for this endeavor, a literal walk in the park. At 53, he was a very active man who had spent his life helping others, always volunteering and keeping busy with various undertakings. More than anything, though, he loved the great outdoors, a passion he shared with his family. Hiking, fishing, camping, and going on wild sled rides down Haystack Mountain were significant parts of the ex-soldier's life. Griffith would also often chaperone Boy Scout trips, which took him on hikes, long bike rides, and marathons. Griffith was always ready to go, meaning he was very physically fit, and no one could have guessed that an easy-to-moderate hike through the remote park could have anything on him. Griffith embarked on the hike, eager to immerse himself in the pristine wilderness surrounding him. Little did he know this journey would be his last. First, Scott and Nancy Griffith made it to Root Glacier. The day was indeed beautiful, and they had passed multiple groups on the trail. Everyone wanted to bask in the park's special mystique. Then it was time to go back. On their way back, though, Scott Griffith started to feel unwell. Tragedy struck suddenly and unexpectedly. He collapsed on the trail. Nancy was terrified. Park staff, local guide personnel, and bystanders sprang into action, each and every one of them wanting to help. When it became clear that Griffith was unresponsive and had no pulse, the rescuers started CPR. They took turns trying to save the man's life, but it was already too late. After almost an hour of continuous resuscitation efforts, medical professionals advised responders to stop the maneuvers. Scott Griffith was declared dead. He suffered a fatal cardiac arrest, his heart stopping amidst the breathtaking beauty of the Alaskan landscape. News of Griffith's tragic passing left friends and family grappling with the sudden loss of a beloved adventurer, father, and husband. In the wake of Scott Griffith's passing, park officials reminded visitors that while Root Glacier Trail is popular, the area is remote, which means that emergency medical care may be hours away.
In the Rocky Mountain National Park, where uneven surface and sky-high peaks create a majestic yet risky landscape, seasoned ranger Jeff Christensen went on a solo backcountry patrol in July 2005. His knowledge fell short of alarming him that this routine expedition would unfold into a tragic tale of danger and the importance of safety. Jeff, a fit and experienced ranger in his 4th season, started his day-long patrol of the Mummy Range at Chapin Pass Trailhead. The day held promise, the sun shining brightly as he set out to ensure the safety of the park's vast wilderness. As the clock struck 11 a.m., Jeff's coworker dropped him off, and he began his ascent into the high rocky terrain. Hours later, reports suggested he was seen at 1:30 p.m., likely summiting the insecure Ypsilon, a peak towering at 13,514 feet. However, tragedy struck as he descended. Jeff Christensen fell between the summit and the vast basin between Ypsilon Mountain and Mount Chiquita. The exact location and the extent of the fall remained shrouded in mystery. Concerns rose when Jeff failed to return as the afternoon sun descended below the peaks. A coworker, realizing something was wrong, reported him missing. This missing report triggered an intensive 8-day search for the lost ranger. The park mobilized a passionate team of 200 searchers, rescue dogs, and helicopters, embarking on one of the largest and longest search efforts in the park's history. Day by day, the searchers combed through the unforgiving terrain, each moment filled with the uncertainty of what might be uncovered. As the search team continued, Hope waned with each passing day. In the middle of the search, rescuers encountered a baffling mystery. Gunfire and radio clicks were received through the rocky expanse. They believed it was Jeff attempting to signal them from the depths of the rugged landscape. The air filled with questions as investigators delved into the enigmatic signals. Amidst the vastness of the Rocky Mountains, a hiker stumbled upon a horrific scene on the 8th day of the search. Jeff Christensen's lifeless body lay in a steep-walled basin, the same landscape he had tirelessly patrolled. The coroner estimated his demise between 6 p.m. and midnight on the day of his solo expedition, which means on July 29, 2005. His head was smashed and there seemed to be internal bleeding. His clothes were torn and there were scratches all over his body. This condition was telling the pain he suffered before his death. The aftermath of Jeff's tragic fall prompted a reflection on safety protocols within the Park Service. The report emphasized the need for rangers to communicate changes in their travel plans and the acquisition of equipment like satellite phones for areas with poor radio coverage. Helmets available to rangers became a subject of discussion, and the report recommended the development of protocols for their usage. The tale of Jeff Christensen's ascent and untimely fall is a narrative of a ranger's dedication and a cautionary reminder of the dangers inherent in high-elevation terrains. The Rocky Mountains, majestic yet risky, witness the challenges faced by those tasked with preserving their beauty. Ultimately, Jeff's story underscores the importance of appropriate safety measures, equipment, and communication protocols in a park ranger's unpredictable and unforgiving world. It's been over 50 years since Dennis Lloyd Martin went camping in the Great Smoky Mountains National Park with his family, just 6 days shy of his 7th birthday. That wasn't the pivotal incident, but what happened at the camp became one of the most mysterious incidents in history. Known affectionately as Denny by his parents, he possessed a resilient spirit despite his tender age, displaying a remarkable strength and fearlessness that belied his small stature. On that fateful Saturday morning of June 14th, Dennis embarked on a hike with his family from Russell Field to Spence, where relatives eagerly awaited their arrival. After eating lunch and the dishes were done, the adults settled down at the knoll to talk and enjoy the view, while Dennis, Doug, and 2 more boys ran and played in the field. Just before 4:30 p.m., the boys put their heads together and whispered as the adults watched. Then they scattered, Doug and the others to the south, Dennis to the north and west toward the Tennessee side. The grown-ups chuckled and waited because they knew what those kids were up to. Dennis's father Bill and the others jumped in pretend surprise when the boys burst out of the brush behind them with shrieks and laughter. After a few minutes, maybe 2 or 3 by the father's count, no more than 5, came the question, "Where's Dennis?" Minutes turned into hours, and Dennis's absence became glaringly apparent as the sun descended below the horizon. Panic rippled through the group as they frantically searched for him, desperately calling out his name, their voices lost amidst the rustling leaves and distant thunder. Dennis's grandfather, Clyde Martin, made the arduous journey to Cades Cove Ranger Station to report his grandson's disappearance. At the same time, Dennis's father, Bill Martin, sought assistance from a park naturalist he had encountered. Yet despite their best efforts and the help of park officials, Dennis remained nowhere to be found. The weather didn't even care about what these families were going through. Clouds gathered overhead, and a breeze swept across the field, and thunder rumbled in the distance. Then almost immediately, a storm broke with a sudden fury, dumping nearly 3 inches of rain over the next few hours, sending the family scurrying to the shelter and turning the trails into rivers of mud. High winds drowned out the calls for Dennis and any chance of hearing an answer. Dennis left with only his clothes and shoes, no hat, raincoat, or other protection. That night, temperatures plummeted to the low 50s, chilling campers deeply. Occasionally, his family stepped out of the shelter, calling his name in vain. Park Ranger Dwight McCarter, seasoned by years of experience in the unforgiving terrain of the Smokies, understood the grim reality facing Dennis. With each passing hour, the threat of hypothermia loomed larger. The following day, a massive search and rescue effort was launched, drawing together hundreds of volunteers and park officials in a desperate bid to find Dennis before it was too late. Despite their tireless efforts and the sheer magnitude of the workforce deployed, the rugged terrain and treacherous conditions proved formidable obstacles. While well-intentioned, numerous volunteers inadvertently complicated the search, trampling potential evidence and muddying the waters of an already complex investigation. By the 8th day, hope began to wane as searchers combed 56 square miles of terrain, their efforts yielding no results. On June 25th, the Martin family returned home, their hearts heavy with grief and uncertainty. Park officials suspended all significant search operations 4 days later, acknowledging that Dennis may never be found. A dedicated few continued searching for Dennis in the following weeks, yet the search ultimately proved fruitless, leaving Dennis's fate unresolved and his family bereft of closure. On a Friday morning back in November 2013, Eric Smith from Cedar Bluff, Virginia, headed out around 10 a.m. from his home. He had in mind to visit his rural land for some hunting, taking some time off from his stressful job as the general foreman of the Buchanan No. 1 mine. Before leaving, he told his wife of his plan, just as she was preparing to go to his mother's place in Buchanan County for the day with one of their daughters. All things considered, they were going to meet back at home later that day. However, when Smith's wife returned, the house was empty, the same way she left it. Smith's wife felt that he'd be back soon, maybe a little tired from not feeling well all week. But as the sun began to set and he still wasn't home, worry started to creep in. It wasn't like he was planning a whole camping trip. He didn't even take his phone, meaning there was no way to call and check in. The more time passed, the worse the feeling got in her gut. Finally, she couldn't wait any longer. She decided to head back to her mother-in-law's place, who by chance was at a church service nearby that night. Upon hearing about Smith's disappearance, Smith's mother joined his wife and other family members to race straight to Smith's land to begin a search for him. Even though it wasn't too cold earlier, maybe in the 50s, things were starting to get chilly fast as night fell. At this moment, Smith's wife knew she had to take further action. She called the police and reported her husband missing. The police also didn't waste any time. Officers, firefighters, and everyone who could lend a hand were out searching the area around Smith's property that night. But it was like looking for a needle in a haystack since the woods were so thick. To help matters, the state police helicopter with night vision was brought in. However, it turned up nothing significant when it canvassed the area. The next day, the search kicked back into high gear. The law enforcement officers brought in sniffer dogs, hoping to catch a scent of Eric. The dogs picked up a few trails leading away from his house, but frustratingly, none of them went anywhere. One trail even seemed to loop back around, but was ruled out as being a few days old. Since Eric had his muzzle loader with him, and it could be loaded, they decided to play it safe and brought in dogs trained to sniff out explosives. Unfortunately, that didn't pan out either. By Sunday, it had become a full-blown search for Smith. Around 60 people were combing the woods. Trained search and rescue crews, Smith's buddies from work, and even neighbors all pitched in. But with every passing hour, hope started to dwindle. And to make things even tougher, Smith was wearing some top-notch camo that practically hid him in the trees. It felt like they were searching for a ghost. The search went on for a while, but eventually they had to call it off when no real clues were uncovered. Smith's family even offered a big reward of $20,000 for any information that could help find Smith. Sadly, nothing was found or reported. Smith's disappearance hit his family the hardest, of course, but his co-workers were wrecked too. According to reports, no one had any bad words to say, as he got along well with everyone. On July 30th, 2016, Riley Zickel, A young man full of curiosity and a love for nature embarked on an adventure into the Mount Jefferson wilderness. Riley, a college student studying at Lewis and Clark College, had always been drawn to the outdoors, finding solace and joy in the tranquility of the wilderness. On a warm July day, Riley set out on what was meant to be a short overnight hike, carrying only the essentials, a backpack filled with supplies, a map to guide his way, and a heart filled with excitement. His plan was simple: to explore the rugged beauty of the Mount Jefferson wilderness, to immerse himself in the sights and sounds of nature, and to experience the freedom that comes with being surrounded by towering trees and winding trails. As Riley ventured deeper into the wilderness, he marveled at the majesty of the landscape around him. Towering trees reached toward the sky, their branches swaying gently in the breeze. The air was alive with the chirping of birds and the rustling of leaves, and the scent of pine filled his nostrils, filling him with a sense of peace and wonder. But as the sun began to set and darkness descended upon the wilderness, Riley realized that he had lost his way. Panic gripped his heart as he struggled to find his bearings, his footsteps echoing through the silent forest as he desperately searched for a familiar landmark. Hours turned into days, and still there was no sign of Riley. His family grew increasingly worried, their hearts heavy with fear and uncertainty. They alerted the authorities, and soon a massive search and rescue operation was underway. Search teams scoured the wilderness, combing through dense forests and rugged terrain in search of any trace of Riley. Helicopters buzzed overhead, their searchlights piercing the darkness as they scanned the landscape below. Volunteers joined the effort, their determination unwavering as they braved the elements in the quest to find Riley and bring him home. But despite their best efforts, Riley's location remained a mystery. Days passed and still there was no sign of him. His family held on to hope, clinging to the belief that their beloved son would soon be found safe and sound. After many months, Riley's whereabouts remained unknown. His family refused to give up hope, their determination unwavering as they continued to search for any clues that might lead them to their son. Then, in August 2019, a group of climbers scaling the rugged slopes of Mount Jefferson made a startling discovery: a body partially buried in a glacier. The climbers immediately alerted the authorities, and soon it was confirmed that the body was Riley's. The news sent shockwaves through the community, and Riley's family and friends were overcome with grief. They had hoped and prayed for Riley's safe return, but now their worst fears had been realized. The recovery operation was difficult, with the steep and treacherous terrain posing challenges for the rescue teams. But eventually, Riley's body was brought out of the wilderness, and his family was finally able to lay him to rest. The cause of Riley's death remains unknown, but authorities believe that he likely succumbed to the harsh conditions of the wilderness. It was a tragic end to a young life, filled with promise and potential, and Riley's memory will forever live on in the hearts of those who knew and loved him. In the heart of Yosemite Valley, where the ancient trees stand tall and proud, there was a man named John Blevins Cogdell III. He wasn't just any man, he was a ranger, someone who looked after Yosemite National Park. John's days were filled with exploring nature's wonders, trees, waterfalls, and blue skies. With his blonde-gray hair shining in the sunlight and his eyes as blue as the sky, he loved wandering around the park, making sure everything was okay. One sunny day, as birds chirped and leaves rustled in the wind, John went out for his usual walk. He had a map and a smile, ready to see what Yosemite had in store. As he walked, John saw all sorts of animals: a family of deer eating grass, a squirrel running around, and even an eagle flying high above. Each sight made him happy and reminded him why he loved his job. But as the day went on and the sun got higher, John felt something strange. It was like a weird feeling in his stomach, as if something wasn't right in the park. Despite feeling strange, John kept going, wanting to do his job as a ranger. He checked trails, watched animals, and made sure everything was okay. But no matter what he did, he couldn't shake the feeling that something was watching him. As the afternoon turned into evening and the shadows got longer, John found himself in a quiet part of the park, a place not many people went to. The air smelled like trees and dirt, and the only sound was the wind blowing through the leaves. In the middle of this quiet spot, John found a little clearing, a secret place hidden away from everything else. In the middle of the clearing was a big oak tree, its branches reaching up to the sky. Underneath the tree, John felt calm and peaceful, a feeling as if he belonged there. He stayed for a while, enjoying the quiet, before he had to leave. But as the sun went down and the forest got dark, John started to feel nervous. It was like the trees were talking to him, whispering secrets in the wind. With a heavy heart, John walked back home, feeling scared and unsure. And then, out of nowhere, it got really dark, and John disappeared into the night. As the hours passed, Yosemite Valley waited for John to come back, hoping he was okay. But he never did, leaving everyone wondering what happened to John Blevins Cogdell III, the ranger who loved the wilderness. Days turned into weeks, and weeks turned into months, but there was no sign of John. The park rangers searched high and low, but there was no trace of him anywhere. Some people said that John had gotten lost in the woods, while others believed that something more sinister had happened, but no one knew for sure, and the mystery of John's disappearance remained unsolved. As time went on, the memory of John began to fade, replaced by new stories and new adventures. But for those who knew him, the pain of his loss lingered, a constant reminder of the dangers that lurked in the wilderness.
It was supposed to be a routine flight, a journey that should have been uneventful, but fate had other plans in store for 45-year-old Christopher Mays and for 36-year-old Andrew Broders. It was February 4th, 2021, a Thursday. At 45, Christopher Mays, who lived in Glenallen, Alaska, was a passionate pilot. He loved flying almost as much as he loved his family and God. Mays was a highly skilled bush pilot. He also had a reputation in the Alaska aviation community, not only because of his skills, but also because he was conscientious and always put safety first. Flying in the winter, surrounded by some of the highest mountains in the United States, brought Mays a unique and singular feeling of peaceful solitude. Christopher Mays was lucky enough to be able to mix business with pleasure. He took his passion and skill and became a pilot for Copper Valley Air Service, a family-owned business providing sightseeing flights, air taxis, charter services, and backcountry or hunting support. His job was to carry U.S. mail and passengers through the Wrangell, St. Elias National Park and Preserve to McCarthy, a remote census-designated place with a population of about 100. That Thursday was no different. Christopher Mays boarded his aircraft, a Cessna 185, and took off. This time around, he wasn't alone. He had a passenger, Andrew Broders. Andrew Broders was 36 years old and a lover of adventure. He was also a man of many trades. He joined the Navy straight out of high school, worked on submarines, and was a talented fisherman. He lived in Washington but came to Alaska twice a year to go gold panning on his property in Dan Creek. Broders always stayed busy with something, so his joining Mays on the plane was just a sign of his adventurous spirit. They took off early that morning and everything went well for a while. The plane flew over Wrangell, St. Elias National Park and Preserve. The park was a sight to behold. More than 20,300 square miles of mountains and valleys, rivers and lakes, glaciers and volcanoes, forests and ice fields. It's an ancient kind of beauty, one that sticks to the soul and speaks to the most primal part of humans. But it's also a dangerous kind of beauty, the background of so many tragedies and lives cut too short. But then, suddenly the moment of peace turned into a moment of terror. The Cessna 185 plummeted to the ground, crashing hard in the forest below, some 13 miles northeast of Chitina. It was just before noon when an emergency locator transmitter was activated from the plane, notifying the Alaska Rescue Coordination Center of the accident. Rescuers immediately flew to the area, but they were welcomed by a horrible sight, and with it came an awful realization. They found the fuselage, the wings, and the engine first. The tail of the airplane was about 200 yards behind them. Christopher Mays and Andrew Broders were both dead, killed by an improbable accident. Alaska State Troopers and the National Park Service worked together to recover the bodies from the remote crash site and return them to their families. The National Transportation Safety Board launched an investigation. Preliminary findings suggested that the plane may have broken up mid-air, which is a very uncommon occurrence, though not unheard of, especially when bad weather is involved. It was around 20 degrees below zero at the time of the crash, but weather didn't appear to be an immediate factor. The wreckage was recovered for examination. Christopher Mays and Andrew Broders may have been killed in this senseless accident, but their memories will live on in the hearts of those who knew and loved them.
In the peaceful northern wilderness of Alberta, on April 23, 2017, 4 hunters began a journey into the middle of nature. Among them were Walter Ladouceur, Andrew Ladouceur, Keith Martin, and Keenan Cardinal. United by the thrill of the hunt, they set out on the Rocher River, ready for an adventure that would soon take a tragic turn. Walter and Andrew Ladouceur, brothers bound by blood and shared experiences, were the 4th Canadian Ranger Patrol Group members. Alongside them was Keith Martin, a seasoned member with 15 years of experience, and Keenan Cardinal, their hunting companion. They were unaware that their hunting trip would become a story to remain forever in the community's memories. As the sun descended the skyline on that fateful April evening, the 4 hunters departed from Fort Chipewyan, their boats slicing through the waters of the Rocher River. The air was filled with excitement and the promise of adventure. However, the next day brought an unsettling truth. The hunters were missing. The news spread like wildfire, casting a shadow of concern over the tight-knit community. The Royal Canadian Mounted Police, or RCMP, swiftly organized a search party, bringing together dozens of volunteers to comb through the uneven ground in search of the lost hunters. Hope waited around, but the mystery deepened as days turned into nights. With each passing day, the search efforts intensified. The RCMP, equipped with boats and helicopters, navigated the twisting Rocher River, its path fragmented by islands. The vast expanse of rugged terrain challenged even the most determined searchers. As Chief Courterelle expressed, the river was not straight, it was divided by an island, so it made the search broader. The community rallied, boats crisscrossing the river, but the hunters had disappeared. Days turned into weeks, and uncertainty hung in the air. Despite the favorable weather, the limitless wilderness proved to be a formidable adversary. The RCMP, passionate in their aim, showed no signs of giving up, offering a glimmer of hope to the families yearning for their loved ones' return. April 30th brought a somber revelation. The lifeless body of Walter Ladouceur was found upriver from where their boat had been discovered in Wood Buffalo National Park. The echoes of grief reverberated through the community. The search continued for Keenan Cardinal and the remaining missing hunters. As May 1st dawned, another heartbreaking discovery shook the community. Keenan Cardinal's lifeless body was recovered, leaving only 2 members of the hunting party unaccounted for, Andrew Ladouceur and Keith Martin. The weeks passed and the search persisted. The families clung to hope that their loved ones would be found alive. Yet on June 25th, the Rocher River revealed its secrets. The bodies of Andrew Ladouceur and Keith Martin were found mere hours apart, about 8 kilometers north of where their boat had been discovered. The 4th Canadian Ranger Patrol Group members were now forever part of the river they had explored together. The Rocher River, once a symbol of adventure, became a reminder of the fragility of life. The community, now draped in the shadows of grief, mourned the loss of 4 brave hunters. The RCMP's dedication and the nonstop support of the community showcased the duty strength that emerges in times of tragedy. As the sun set on the Rocher River, it cast a golden glow on the waters that had witnessed both the thrill of life and the pain of unpredictable death. Russell Hill and Carol Clay. In the Australian state of Victoria, Russell Hill, 74, and Carol Clay, 73, embarked on a camping trip to find peace and serenity amidst the majestic beauty of the Victorian Alps. For them, the Onondaga Valley offered the perfect retreat. a secluded haven where they could indulge in their secret love affair, away from prying eyes and judgmental gazes. That fateful day, Russell Hill leaves his home in Druid and collects Carol Clay from her Pakenham home for a camping trip. While on the way, Mr. Hill tells his friend via amateur radio he has set up a campsite in the Onondaga Valley, about 300 kilometers northeast of Melbourne. Little did they know that tragedy awaited them in the heart of the wilderness as they set out on their journey. Russell Hill, a seasoned outdoorsman with expert area knowledge, navigated the rugged terrain confidently and efficiently. Carol Clay, his companion and confidant, followed close behind, her trust in Russell unwavering as they ventured deeper into the unknown. The events of that fateful day unfolded with chilling swiftness, shattering the tranquility of the Onondaga Valley and plunging Russell and Carol into a nightmare from which they would never emerge. Their campsite was later discovered burned, with no sign of the campers around 2 p.m. A passing visitor stumbled upon their campsite, which had turned into a charred and desolate wasteland, devoid of any signs of life. The remnants of a suspicious fire lay scattered amidst the ashes, and the police were alerted. Russell's friend Rob Ashland was contacted about the incident. He knew Russell's expertise in navigating the wilderness made it unlikely that he would wander into a dense bushland without a compelling reason. The absence of distress calls over amateur radio deepened the mystery, leaving Rob and others grasping for answers in a sea of uncertainty. The following investigation took numerous twists and turns, with police delving into every possible lead in search of clues that might shed light on Russell and Carol's disappearance. Cadaver dogs scoured the landscape, their keen senses attuned to the faintest scent of human remains. Extensive searches were conducted, spanning vast stretches of rugged terrain, in the hopes of finding any trace of the missing couple. Forensic testing of the items discovered at the burned campsite yielded few answers, leaving investigators frustrated and no closer to unraveling the mystery. Speculation ran rampant, with theories ranging from foul play to accidental misadventure, each offering a tantalizing glimpse into the shadowy depths of the human psyche. Despite the best efforts of law enforcement and search teams, the truth behind Russell and Carol's disappearance remains elusive. As former police officer and fire forensic expert Greg Kelly delved into the case, his concerns grew regarding the vital clues that lie within the charred remnants of the campsite. Despite the absence of any trace of the missing lovers, authorities hesitated to classify the case as a mere instance of disappeared persons. With his extensive experience in criminal investigations, Kelly found it highly unusual that Russell Hill, a seasoned outdoorsman, would abandon a campfire to burn unchecked, raising suspicions of foul play. The notion of using fire to destroy physical evidence of a crime resonated with Kelly, leading him to believe that the incident at the campsite may have been a deliberate act intended to conceal a darker truth. There was also a missing drone that belonged to Russell Hill. This added another layer of intrigue to the investigation, suggesting the possibility that he may have inadvertently captured incriminating footage before his disappearance. Valentine Smith, a retired senior sergeant with the Victorian Police, speculated that the drone may have recorded evidence of illegal activity, triggering a confrontation that ultimately led to the disappearance of Russell and Carol. The search for the missing couple continued for several months, but despite the tireless efforts of law enforcement, they remained elusive, their fate shrouded in mystery. In November 2021, a breakthrough in the case emerged when police revealed the possibility of a violent altercation at the campsite involving Russell Hill, Carol Clay, and another person of interest. Surveillance footage captured a dark blue 1990s model Nissan Patrol with a trailer in the vicinity on the day of the disappearance, prompting authorities to seek information from the driver. Subsequently, Greg Lynn, a former airline pilot, was arrested and charged with the murder of Russell Hill and Carol Clay. Victoria Police Forensics Officer Mark Galotly was tasked with examining evidence related to the case. uncovering a disturbing sequence of events that shed light on the grim fate of the missing couple. According to information provided by the Missing Persons Squad detectives, a confrontation ensued between Russell Hill, Carol Clay, and Greg Lynn, allegedly sparked by a dispute over the drone flown by Hill and Clay. The altercation escalated when Hill seized Lynn's gun from his car, leading to a struggle for control of the weapon that resulted in Carol Clay being shot dead. As the confrontation intensified, Lynn allegedly stabbed Russell Hill to death, leaving behind a hotel room with numerous bloodstains as grim evidence of the violent encounter. Despite efforts to clean the scene, traces of blood remained on the footmat. The revelation of these disturbing details marked a significant development in the investigation, providing authorities with a clearer understanding of the events leading to the disappearance of Russell Hill and Carol Clay. However, the remains of the missing couple remained elusive, leaving unanswered questions lingering in the minds of their loved ones and the wider community. On October 15, 2004, Jeremy Ivan Childress went on an annual elk hunting trip with a co-worker, Shane Louie, and Louie's young son, Shane Jr. Their destination? The Tillamook Forest in Oregon, a place well known as a great spot for hunters. Things took a turn for the worse not long after they set off. Somewhere along the way, they took a wrong turn and lost sight of where they held camp. The trio backtracked, hoping to stumble upon some familiar sight, but the dense forest seemed to swallow up any sign of their campsite. As they went deeper into the woods, Louie's young son grew increasingly scared. This prompted Louie to give up on the search and head back to the truck with his son. However, Childress, who was a far better hunter with years of experience navigating the wilderness, wasn't ready to throw in the towel just yet. Leaving his coworker and his son behind, he ventured off alone with a promise to come back for them once he found the camp. Little did they know, this goodbye would be their last. Childress never returned as promised. On October 18th, a logger found the Louies and had to lead them out of the woods, since Childress was the only one who knew his way around. Childress's disappearance was quickly reported to the right authorities. Seeing the seriousness of the case, they swung into action, organizing a search for him. Over 300 people eventually joined the search. Despite the area where Childress vanished being filled with many dangers, such as wild animals and gullies, they were determined to find him. For a whole week, the authorities and volunteers searched the area with dog teams, helicopters, and all-terrain vehicles. But all they found was a single gum wrapper, the kind Childress liked to chew. They did find an empty campsite a mile and a half from where he went missing, but that was it. Childress's rifle and his pack of cigarettes, which he took along prior to venturing into the woods, were never recovered, nor did they find him dead or alive. Even though things looked grim, Childress's loved ones still did not give up. On some occasions, hunters went missing, and most of the time they turned up okay. They hoped this was also going to be the case for Childress, but as the days turned into weeks, it became clear he wasn't coming back. It took a long time, all the way until 2006, before a death certificate was obtained for Childress. While it acknowledged that he was deceased, his loved ones are still yet to find closure. It was February 13, 1983, when Rudy Moder, a 27-year-old ski mountaineer from West Germany, set out on a solo trek into the wilderness. Rudy's journey began with a sense of excitement and anticipation. With his skis strapped to his backpack and a map of the park's trails in hand, he left the Zimmerman Lake trailhead on the west side of the park. His destination? Thunder Pass, a remote and challenging terrain known for its breathtaking vistas and treacherous conditions. As Rudy ventured deeper into the backcountry, he was enveloped by the serene beauty of the Rocky Mountains. The crisp mountain air filled his lungs, and the crunch of snow beneath his boots echoed through the silent wilderness. For Rudy, a seasoned mountaineer with a thirst for adventure, this was paradise. But paradise soon gave way to peril. 6 days passed, and Rudy failed to return from his planned 2 to 3 day excursion. Concerned for his safety, his roommate in Fort Collins, Colorado, raised the alarm, alerting authorities to Rudy's disappearance. The news sent shockwaves through the tight-knit community of outdoor enthusiasts and search and rescue teams. Ground crews, aerial searches, and an avalanche search dog were deployed to scour the park's northwestern perimeter in a desperate bid to find any sign of Rudy. Yet despite their best efforts, the vast expanse of the wilderness remained impenetrable, concealing Rudy's fate. As the days turned into weeks and the weeks into months, hope began to fade. The once bustling search operation dwindled, leaving only the haunting silence of the mountains in its wake. Rudy's family, thousands of miles away in West Germany, clung to the hope that their beloved son and brother would soon return home. But the mountains held their secrets close, refusing to yield any clues to Rudy's whereabouts. For years, his disappearance remained a mystery, a haunting reminder of the dangers that lurked in the unforgiving wilderness. Then, in the summer of 2020, a glimmer of hope emerged from the depths of the mountains. A hiker stumbled upon desiccated human remains while traversing Skeleton Gulch, an area previously scoured during the initial search efforts nearly 4 decades prior. Could these be the long-lost remains of Rudy Motor? The discovery reignited interest in the cold case, prompting park rangers and FBI officials to return to Skeleton Gulch in search of answers. Amidst the rugged terrain and towering cliffs, they meticulously searched for any trace of evidence that could shed light on Rudy's disappearance. And their efforts were not in vain. Alongside the skeletal remains, they discovered ski equipment, apparel, and a few personal effects belonging to Rudy, providing poignant clues to his fate. Yet even in death, Rudy's story remained shrouded in uncertainty. Attempts to match the subject's teeth to Rudy's dental records yielded inconclusive results, leaving officials grappling with lingering doubts. Was it truly Rudy Motor who had met his end amidst the rugged beauty of the Rocky Mountains, or was there more to the story than met the eye? For Rudy's family, particularly his sister, Elfrida Motor Frey, the discovery brought a mix of relief and sorrow. After nearly 4 decades of uncertainty, the confirmation of Rudy's fate provided a measure of closure. Yet the journey towards finality was far from over. Elfrida, longing to lay her brother to rest in their hometown of Friedberg near Augsburg, faced bureaucratic hurdles as the case remained open for U.S. authorities. Despite her desire for a swift burial, the process of repatriating Rudy's remains to Germany awaited the completion of the FBI's investigation. And as the wheels of bureaucracy turned, Elfrida clung to hope that her brother would soon find peace in his final resting place. For Rudy, a passionate adventurer who had ventured into the wild in search of thrills and challenges, the journey home was a poignant reminder of a life cut short, but not forgotten. In the end, Rudy Motor's story transcended borders and time, an example of the power of memory and the quest for closure in the face of the unknown. As his remains traveled across continents, his spirit found solace in the embrace of loved ones, a fitting end to a tale of adventure, loss, and ultimately, resolution. In the heart of Yellowstone National Park, where the air is crisp and the trees stand tall, a tale of adventure and peril unfolded. It began with 2 brothers, Mark O'Neill and Kim Crumbo, who shared a passion for exploration and the great outdoors. Mark, a seasoned 67-year-old adventurer from Chimacum, Washington, and Kim, a sprightly 74-year-old from Ogden, Utah, both worked for the National Park Service. Despite their age difference, they were inseparable companions, embarking on countless adventures together. Their latest escapade was a 4-night journey to Shoshone Lake, a remote and serene location nestled within the heart of the park. With their backpacks loaded and their trusty canoe Sholu strapped to the roof of Mark's Honda Pilot, they eagerly set out on their expedition. Their journey began auspiciously as they made their way to Lewis Lake Campground, the starting point of their adventure. However, upon arrival, they were met with disappointment. The campground was fully occupied. Undeterred, the resilient duo decided to improvise and kickstart their expedition a day early. Little did they know this impromptu decision would alter the course of their journey. Opting for a makeshift campsite at South Narrow Point, they pitched their tent and settled in for the night. Underneath the vast expanse of the starlit sky, they exchanged stories, laughter, and cherished memories by the crackling campfire, relishing the tranquility of the wilderness. As dawn broke, they eagerly embarked on their canoeing expedition, navigating the tranquil waters of Shoshone Lake with Sholu as their trusty vessel. The shimmering surface of the lake reflected the surrounding majesty of towering pine trees and snow-capped peaks, instilling a sense of awe and wonder in the intrepid explorers. Their journey was initially idyllic as they paddled leisurely along the southern shore of the lake, basking in the serenity of their surroundings. However, nature had other plans in store for them. Unbeknownst to the brothers, dark clouds began to gather ominously on the horizon, heralding the onset of an impending storm. As gusts of wind intensified and waves surged with ferocity, their tranquil excursion transformed into a battle against the elements. Faced with mounting adversity, Mark and Kim strained against the tempestuous onslaught, their muscles burning with exertion as they fought to maintain control of their canoe. Yet despite their valiant efforts, the relentless fury of the storm threatened to overwhelm them. In a desperate bid for survival, they resolved to seek refuge on the nearest shore, braving the treacherous waters in a harrowing swim for safety. The icy embrace of the lake enveloped them, chilling them to the bone as they struggled against the merciless currents. With every stroke, their strength waned, and their resolve wavered. Yet fueled by sheer determination and an unbreakable bond, they pressed onward, driven by the primal instinct to survive against all odds. But fate proved unkind, as the unforgiving waters of Shoshone Lake exacted a toll too steep to bear. Exhausted and disoriented, Mark and Kim succumbed to the frigid depths, their bodies consumed by the icy embrace of the lake. Days turned into weeks, and the once vibrant spirits of Mark and Kim vanished without a trace, despite exhaustive search efforts by park rangers and rescue teams. Yet amid the solemnity of their untimely demise, the memories of Mark and Kim endured, an example to the enduring bonds of kinship and the spirit of exploration that transcends the boundaries of time and space.
It began as a journey of adventure and exploration, with two friends setting out to conquer the unruly nature of waters, armed only with a pack raft, a small inflatable raft designed for portability and maneuverability in remote waterways. However, what was meant to be an exhilarating expedition turned into a nightmare. It was August 2nd, 2018, and Aiden Don and his friend were ready to start their new adventure. They were both novices to pack rafting, but one thing they surely didn't lack was enthusiasm. The sport seemed a perfect endeavor for the two of them, young as they were and full of life. What better way to spend their time in Wrangell, St. Elias National Park and Preserve, than navigating its tumultuous waters and feeling their hearts pumping adrenaline-rich blood? Don, who was 22 years old, had come all the way from Salzburg, Austria, in order for their planned day-long pack rafting trip. He and his paddling partner were flown into the start point of their Nizina River float, near the lake at the base of Nizina Glacier. But from there, it was up to them to navigate the treacherous waters and make it back to safety. The Nizina River, which is glacially fed, is the largest tributary of the Chitina River. Like most rivers in Wrangell, St. Elias National Park and Preserve, the Nizina is cold and silty. Conditions on the river change constantly. Rain and sun can increase the volume and depth of the water. In other words, crossing such a river is no easy feat, and even experts can have a hard time with it. Aiden Don and his friend were no experts. It is unclear whether they knew that unguided trips on the river aren't recommended. If they did, this wasn't enough to stop them. To make matters worse, the two friends were ill-equipped. They weren't wearing personal flotation devices or dry suits, pieces of equipment that can make a difference between life and death. Perhaps unaware of the dangers, the two men set out on the water, 3 miles downriver, though, the paddling partners became separated by more than 100 yards. The situation was less than ideal, but they had to keep paddling. As their raft separated, so did their fates. Soon after they were carried apart, Don's friend realized something was amiss. There it was, a capsized raft. The roaring sound of the river was startling. There was no sign of Don. The friend landed on an island and immediately called for emergency assistance using a satellite phone. As seconds and minutes passed, it became increasingly obvious that Don was in grave danger. Aerial searchers promptly responded to the emergency call. They flew over the river looking for the missing rafter. They made the gruesome discovery about 4 miles farther down the stream from the friend's location on the island. Don's body was lying there, lifeless. The surviving man was picked up, but recovering Don's body wasn't as easy. Additional help was called. Don's body was retrieved the following day at noon on August 3rd with the assistance of Denali National Park helicopter and crew. The body was transported to the state medical examiner, and an investigation was launched. Aiden Don's untimely death serves as a poignant reminder of the inherent risks of exploring the untamed wilderness, urging all who dare to venture into its depths to do so with caution, respect, and above all, preparedness. Pack rafters should always have bailout options because rafts can float away or be blown away.
In the shadows of Horsetooth Reservoir, Brendan Unit, a dedicated ranger with Larimer County Natural Resources, went on a mission to protect the public and the park's resources. Brendan, a 27-year-old ranger known for his selflessness and contagious laugh, patrolled the Horsetooth Reservoir, ensuring the safety of boaters and campers. On this fateful night, a severe storm with unexpected strong winds spread a black shadow over the serene waters. It was just last year when he dedicated himself entirely to ensuring the safety of park visitors, offering a helping hand and beacon of hope in times of crisis. His life turned unexpectedly on that fateful Thursday, August 20th, 2020. As storm clouds gathered ominously over Horsetooth Reservoir, a distress call echoed. 2 swimmers were battling the raging waters, their pleas for aid reaching Brendan's courageous heart. Reports revealed that evidence suggested Ranger Brendan Unit intentionally beached his patrol boat on the west shore of the reservoir. His purpose was to check on boating campsites when that distress call came in from fellow rangers seeking assistance for 2 boaters in trouble near Soldier Canyon Dam. Without hesitation, he set forth into the storm, risking everything valiantly to rescue those in peril. Amid the storm's fury, Brendan's selflessness shone bright, but tragically, it became his final act of heroism. His sacrifice is a testament to the unwavering dedication of a ranger who gave his all to protect others. During this critical moment, an unexpected and forceful wind swept across the reservoir, reaching up to 35-mile-per-hour gusts. Rangers reported hearing fragmented radio communications, presumably from Unit. Subsequently, all communications ceased, and Unit did not respond to the call for help with the distressed boaters, who were rescued by other rangers shortly after 9 p.m. Concerned about Unit's well-being, the rangers initiated a search. They located his patrol boat on the east side of the reservoir near Rotary Park, but Unit was not on board. Fearing the worst, an emergency call was broadcast, appealing to others for assistance in the search for Brendan Unit. The search team started to search the area through the night with ground crews, boats, drones, and aerial support. The search intensified, hoping to find Brendan on the shore where he patrolled on foot. Instead, a life vest, a crucial piece of a ranger's gear, surfaced, raising more questions than answers. In the eerie hours past midnight, a Colorado Parks and Wildlife boat, equipped with sonar, discovered Brendan's lifeless body in 12 feet of water. The proximity to the abandoned life vest added a layer of mystery to the already perplexing scenario. Sheriff Justin Smith pieced together the puzzle, suggesting Brendan intentionally beached his boat before the wind intensified. When the call for assistance came, the wind had blown his boat offshore. Brendan, aware that his life vest would inflate, rendering himself unable to retrieve the boat, made a critical decision. The unforeseen circumstances unfolded as he ventured into the water without the life vest. Distressed and pulled under, Brendan lost his life in the very act of protecting others. The coroner's autopsy confirmed accidental drowning, a sad confirmation of the sacrifice made that stormy night. Park authorities paid tribute to Brendan, emphasizing his commitment to safeguarding the public and natural resources. The heartfelt acknowledgement highlighted Brendan's threefold mission and courageous efforts that evening. A supervisor finally recalled him as a selfless ranger known for a contagious laugh. His brief yet impactful tenure of 6 months within the patrol unit left an enduring impression. The community grieved the loss of a valuable asset. A boat parade, a poignant tribute, unfolded on the reservoir's southern expanse. Around 20 vessels, slow motoring in a line, honored Brendan. Amidst the smoke from current wildfires, boaters and observers paid their respects, acknowledging the ranger who always brought life to the party. Brendan Unit, a Windsor High School graduate and former wrestler, had left an enduring legacy of selflessness, dedication, and a willingness to sacrifice for the greater good. Connie Smith. In 1952, 10-year-old Connie Smith lived in Wyoming and went camping with a female friend at YMCA's Camp Sloan in Salisbury, Connecticut. The day started ominously with a bloody nose, the aftermath of a confrontation with fellow campers. Despite this, Connie maintained her composure and vanished without a trace after informing her tent mates of a trip to get an ice pack. Strangely, she left behind essential belongings, suggesting a spontaneous decision. Clad in blue shorts, a long-sleeve shirt, and a bright red windbreaker, Connie embarked on her journey, carrying only a black zippered purse containing cherished photos. Along Indian Mountain Road, witnesses spotted her engaged in seemingly innocent activities, like picking daisies and inquiring about directions to Lakeville, Connecticut. Her supposed homesickness contradicted earlier sentiments expressed during her mother's recent visit, where Connie had appeared content and even desired an extended stay at Camp Sloan. The revelation of Connie's disappearance prompted camp counselors to initiate a search 3 hours after her departure. Witnesses later reported sightings of Connie attempting to hitchhike near the intersection of U.S. Route 44 and Belgo Road. The mystery deepened as investigators delved into Connie's background and behavioral patterns. Despite her youthful age, Connie displayed a remarkable sense of independence and self-reliance, characteristics that puzzled those who knew her. Community members rallied together, combing through surrounding areas and distributing flyers in hopes of locating Connie. As days turned into weeks, the search intensified, with law enforcement agencies coordinating efforts to uncover any leads or clues that could shed light on her whereabouts. Connie's disappearance triggered Connecticut's most extensive missing persons search in history, leaving a community in turmoil and sparking a nationwide search effort. Truck drivers, carnival workers, and gypsies along Route 22 were scrutinized, reflecting the breadth of the investigation's scope. State troopers, volunteers, and aircraft from Westover Field and the Civil Air Patrol combed the area tirelessly, yet Connie's whereabouts remained elusive. Despite her father, Peter Smith, and other family members actively participating in the search, the mystery persisted, casting a shadow over the community. Numerous theories emerged, with reported sightings stretching from Canada to New York. However, each lead ultimately led to a dead end, leaving investigators frustrated and Connie's fate unresolved. Even with DNA evidence entered into police databases, hope dwindled as the years passed without significant progress. One suspect, William Henry Redmond, a former carnival worker with a prior murder charge, drew attention due to his criminal history. However, despite suspicions, authorities couldn't establish his presence in Connecticut at the time of Connie's disappearance, and he passed a polygraph test, further complicating the investigation. Another tantalizing lead emerged when traveling salesman Frederick Pope confessed to Ohio police, claiming knowledge of Connie's fate. Pope implicated his associate, Jack Walker, in Connie's abduction and subsequent murder in Arizona. However, Pope's story unraveled upon investigation. revealing inconsistencies and fabricated details. The lack of corroborating evidence led to Pope's dismissal as a credible witness, leaving investigators at square one. Designated as Case B57H in state records, Connie Smith's disappearance remains one of Connecticut's most notorious cold cases. Despite the tireless efforts of investigators, including lead investigator Richard Chapman, who continued the search even after retirement, Connie's fate remains unknown. Peter Smith, Connie's father, even passed away without closure, and his obituary acknowledged the ongoing mystery surrounding his daughter's disappearance. Until answers are found, Connie's story remains frozen. Chances are, if you're 82 years old, your doctors are probably going to advise you not to go hunting. Your body is not what it used to be, and trekking through the woods for miles would only do you more damage. But 82-year-old Thomas Messick Sr. wasn't one to take such advice. Despite his old age, this ex-paratrooper wasn't ready to give up hunting. He'd been hunting with his old friends, all seasoned veterans like him, for over 55 years. So when they invited him on their annual trip, he was all in, even though he had just recovered from a bout of shingles. On November 15, 2015, he and his group of friends set out on another hunting adventure in the woods south of Brant Lake in New York. This spot was legendary for hunters and fishermen, even attracting big names like former President Teddy Roosevelt back in the day. With Messick and his group of friends' wealth of experience, it's safe to assume that they were confident about having a successful hunt, spiced with some fun. Arriving at their chosen location, they devised a two-part plan to catch the prey. It was quite a simple plan. Messick would hold position, while the others flushed out deer towards him, making them easier targets. He would then pick them off as much as he could. As time passed, Messick's friends arrived at where he was supposed to be and noticed something strange. He was gone. There was no sign of him, his rifle, or even his walkie-talkie. Did he bag some trophies and head back early? Nope, not a single deer was in sight either. Worried, his friends started searching for him. After a while, they had to call in the forest rangers for help, as Messick was yet to return, even after the agreed-upon time. The search continued, but soon it was dark, and they could no longer go deeper into the woods. Even at this point, Messick's friends knew they couldn't all just return home. Half the group stayed, fired their rifles, and honked the car horns to attract him to the area where they were camped. The remaining men left to inform his family and the authorities about the situation. Despite everyone hoping that Messick would return, there was no sign of him all night. By morning, a team of 13 trained search and rescue personnel from the Park Service were on the case. Unfortunately, their search came up empty too. Over the next few weeks, the search exploded. Over 300 people, from volunteers to law enforcement, joined in. They used everything they had, dogs, helicopters, the whole works, but Messick vanished without a trace. At some point, the FBI joined in on the case. Their arrival offered a glimmer of hope, but it wasn't meant to be. No leads surfaced and the mystery only deepened. Soon it was clear that the investigation had hit a dead end, and slowly everyone began to accept that Messick was gone for good. The only comfort in this tragedy was the lack of evidence suggesting foul play, but that didn't stop theories from swirling. One in particular focused on Messick's health issues. He had a history of heart trouble, not to mention poor vision and hearing. Combine that with his age, and some folks believed he might have stumbled into a hidden cave or crevice and gotten hurt, unable to call for help. To honor Messick's memory and offer some closure to his family, a memorial gravesite was established, which can still be visited today. The Appalachian Trail, with its rugged terrain and breathtaking vistas, beckons adventurers from around the world. Among them was Geraldine Largay, a determined hiker known as Inchworm to her fellow trekkers. Her story is one of bravery, survival, and ultimately heartbreaking loss. Jerry embarked on her journey on April 23, 2013, accompanied by her friend, Jane Lee. Their plan was to hike the Appalachian Trail together, meeting Jerry's husband along the way for supplies and support. However, fate intervened when Jane was called away due to a family emergency on June 30th, leaving Jerry to continue her journey alone. From the outset, Jerry faced challenges. She struggled with a poor sense of direction, fear of the dark, and being alone. Despite these obstacles, she pressed on, determined to fulfill her dream of hiking the trail. On the night of July 21st, 22nd, Jerry found herself at the Poplar Ridge Lean-To in western Maine, where she crossed paths with fellow hiker Dottie Rust, who captured the last known picture of her. Little did Jerry know, this would be the beginning of a harrowing ordeal that would grip the hearts of many. The morning of July 22nd dawned like any other on the trail, but for Jerry, it marked the start of a nightmare. Venturing off the trail to relieve herself, she quickly became disoriented and lost. Panic set in as she realized she was alone, surrounded by the dense wilderness of Maine. With each passing moment, Jerry's fear intensified. She attempted to send text messages to her husband George, pleading for help, but poor cell service thwarted her efforts. Desperate and alone, she sought higher ground in hopes of finding a signal, but to no avail. As the hours turned into days, Jerry's situation grew increasingly dire. She wandered aimlessly through the dense forest, her panic mounting with each step. Her journal entries paint a haunting picture of her desperation as she grappled with the harsh reality of her predicament. On August 6, 2013, Jerry penned a heart-wrenching plea in her journal. "When you find my body, please call my husband George and my daughter Carrie. It will be the greatest kindness for them to know that I am dead and where you found me, no matter how many years from now." These words, written in the depths of despair, would echo through the wilderness long after Jerry was gone. Despite her efforts to survive, Jerry's journey came to a tragic end. On October 14, 2015, her remains were discovered inside her sleeping bag in a campsite she had meticulously maintained until the very end. The news sent shockwaves through the hiking community, reigniting a sense of sadness and disbelief at the loss of one of their own. The discovery of Jerry's journal shed light on the final days of her life, revealing the extent of her struggle and the depth of her despair. Her entries detailed her attempts to navigate the unforgiving terrain, her frantic messages to her husband, and her heartbreaking plea for closure. But even in death, Jerry's spirit lives on. Her story serves as a cautionary tale for hikers everywhere, reminding them of the inherent dangers of venturing into the wilderness unprepared. As Jerry's family and friends gathered to mourn her loss, they were comforted by the knowledge that she had touched the lives of countless people along her journey. Geraldine's story is a reminder of how tough life can be and how strong people can be, even when things are hard. She may be gone, but her memory will live on as a reminder to be careful when exploring the wild and to appreciate the beauty of nature while also respecting its dangers. In the heart of Fort Collins, where the jagged peaks of the Rocky Mountains loomed in the distance, there lay a tranquil oasis known as Horsetooth Reservoir. Its shimmering waters beckoned to all who sought solace amidst the chaos of modern life, offering a sanctuary where troubles melted away like snowflakes on a warm spring day. Brendan Unit, a man with a heart as vast as the wilderness itself, had always felt drawn to the beauty of Horsetooth. From a young age, he had spent countless hours exploring its shores, marveling at the wonders that lay hidden beneath the surface. It was here, amidst the whispering pines and rocky outcrops, that Brendan felt most alive. As he grew older, Brendan's love for the outdoors blossomed into a passion for conservation and stewardship. He dreamt of a future where he could dedicate himself to protecting the natural world, ensuring that future generations could experience its wonders just as he had. And so when the opportunity arose to join the ranks of the Larimer County Department of Natural Resources as a boat ranger at Horsetooth Reservoir, Brendan leaped at the chance. It was a dream come true. a chance to merge his love for the outdoors with his desire to serve his community. From the moment he donned his ranger hat and stepped onto the deck of his patrol boat, Brendan knew he was exactly where he was meant to be. Day in and day out, he patrolled the reservoir's waters, keeping a watchful eye for signs of trouble and lending a helping hand to those in need. Whether it was assisting stranded boaters, rescuing lost hikers, or simply sharing his vast knowledge of the local flora and fauna, Brendan approached each day with unflinching dedication and boundless enthusiasm. His infectious smile and warm demeanor endeared him to all who crossed his path. But amidst the laughter and camaraderie, Brendan never forgot the solemn responsibility that came with his badge. He knew that Horsetooth Reservoir could be as unforgiving as it was beautiful, its tranquil waters concealing dangers both seen and unseen. It was a lesson he would soon learn firsthand. One fateful afternoon, as the sun dipped below the horizon and cast its golden glow across the water, Brendan received a distress call from a group of boaters stranded on the far side of the reservoir. Without hesitation, he revved the engine of his patrol boat and set off into the gathering dusk, determined to lend aid to those in need. But as he raced across the water, a sudden gust of wind swept down from the mountains, catching Brendan off guard and sending his boat careening off course. Panic surged within him as he fought to regain control, the darkness closing in around him like a suffocating blanket. In the chaos that ensued, Brendan's boat was lost in the churning waters, leaving him stranded and alone as darkness gathered. With each passing moment, the storm continued its relentless assault, its fury unabated, while Brendan clung to the hope of rescue amidst the howling winds and crashing waves. But as the hours stretched into eternity, Brendan knew that his fate was sealed, and then, as swiftly as it had begun, the storm subsided, leaving nothing behind but an empty expanse of water and the echoes of a life cut short before its time. Brendan Unit had vanished without a trace, leaving behind only memories and a legacy that would endure long after the waters of Horsetooth Reservoir had stilled.
With a satellite phone in hand, David White wrote a quick message. He then sent the text via InReach, letting his point of contact know he was about to cross Jacksina Creek in Wrangell, St. Elias National Park and Preserve, and proceed with his hunt. It was August 12, 2021, 6 days after he first entered the park. It was the last time he ever spoke with anyone. At 40 years old, David White was an experienced hunter. Being a soldier, White was also physically fit, which helped him navigate the outdoors. But nature is a great force, and not even youth, experience, or physical strength can guarantee our survival when we deal with it. On August 6, 2023, David White entered Wrangell, St. Elias National Park and Preserve. The park is known for its population of Dall sheep. It is also one of the few places in North America where Dall sheep can be hunted. David White wanted to do just that. He was alone, but he trusted his supplies and gear, his satellite phone, and more than anything, his own abilities. Out there, confidence in oneself is crucial. White had hunted sheep in the park in previous years too, so he wasn't exactly inexperienced either. After a few days, the 40-year-old man realized he needed to resupply before he could resume hunting. He went back on August 11th, ready for his endeavor to prove fruitful. Every now and then, the man would send a text to his point of contact. Otherwise, he was completely alone in the wild, closer to the beasts, to the valleys, to the rivers and trees, than to any other human. The following day, on August 12th, David White sent his last message. His plan was to cross Jacksina Creek to access a hunting area across the valley. But this was no easy feat. Recent rainfall had affected the creek. As such, the water levels were pretty high, even dangerously so. Conditions in the creek vary depending on the weather. Sometimes water levels can change significantly, even within a single day. To make matters more precarious, the paths around the creek were overgrown with plants and brush, and there were no actual trails around that particular area. This was a truly wild part of America's largest national park. Still, David White proceeded with his plans. 4 days later, White's point of contact reached out to park officials. They were informed that White had stopped communicating. At first, the response was moderate, perhaps given the fact that White was supposed to come back from his trip on August 16th. A small aircraft made passes over the park, searching for anyone who might seem in distress. But the initial search didn't turn up anything at all, and when White failed to return by Thursday, the day he was due to complete his trip, the search effort intensified. But everything failed. No plane, no helicopter, no ground or pack rafting team was able to find the man. 2 days later, on August 21st, a pack rafting search team found White's body beside Jacksina Creek, all evidence pointing to the fact that White had been swept away by the current. David White's tragic death is just one of many drownings in the history of Copper Valley. The valley's rivers, lakes, and creeks are very dangerous and have been claiming lives since the gold rush in 1898.
In August 2010, in the vast boundaries of western Alaska, a small float plane went on a journey that would soon become a tale of suspense and determination. In the center of majestic Katmai National Park, Alaska, 3 brave Park Service rangers, Mason McLeod, Neil and Seth Spradlin, along with their experienced pilot, set out on a routine flight from Swikshack Bay to King Salmon. The skies were clear, and the plane, a de Havilland Beaver, took off at 1:45 p.m. local time. Little did they know their adventure would take an unexpected turn. The weather was unstable that day, with a powerful storm worsening conditions. Despite the flight being only an hour from the park to King Salmon, it faced unexpected challenges. The usual straightforward journey became difficult as the heavy storm wreaked havoc. As the hours passed, anxiety heightened in the park authorities when the small float plane failed to arrive at King Salmon Airport as scheduled. Concerns heightened and the news of the missing plane spread like wildfire. The Rangers community, friends, and family held their breath, hoping for a safe return. They didn't get any emergency calls or messages from the plane. They couldn't hear anything on the radio because the signals were too weak. This made everyone uncertain about what happened with the plane and the people on board. The absence of communication added to the mystery, leaving everyone in the dark about the plane's fate and the well-being of the passengers. Without any signals or messages, there was a sense of worry and confusion among the search teams and those waiting for news about their loved ones. The weak signals made it difficult for anyone to figure out the situation. The search operation began with a collaboration of forces including the U.S. Coast Guard, the Alaskan Air National Guard, the Park Service, the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, Alaska State Troopers, and a private air service. Battling poor visibility, the team scoured the vast wilderness. The clock ticked, and by 10:30 p.m. local time, the search had yielded no signs of the missing plane. Meanwhile, a second plane carrying 2 additional park employees reached King Salmon from the same route. However, worsening weather conditions forced them to fly to mere 500 feet, following river drainage to avoid dangerous mountainous terrain. Despite the challenges, they reported no severity. After a continuous 2-week search, the search team started to lose hope. However, the families of the missing rangers anxiously awaited news, desperate for any sign of their loved ones. Mason McLeod's family, refusing to yield to despair, turned to the internet, rallying support and raising the reward for information to $65,000. Weeks were passing as the search expanded, covering 280 miles southwest of Anchorage, near King Salmon. Arnold, Mason's cousin, and other family members created a website, pleading for donations to fund a private plane for an extended search. The struggle to overcome the vastness of the Alaskan wilderness and the financial burdens of the search intensified. Despite the unstoppable efforts of authorities and Mason's family, there was no trace of Mason and his fellow rangers. Despite the pain of uncertainty, the National Transportation Safety Board released its final report after a month of tireless search. The absence of a flight recorder left the mystery shrouded in ambiguity. The report suggested the probable cause was the pilot's temporary unresponsiveness, the reasons for which remained elusive. The National Park Service, grappling with the aftermath, revealed a grim picture. It seemed the plane had collided with a cliff over a remote beach in the state, leaving no sign of survivors. The once hopeful search shifted into a sad acceptance of the harsh reality. And as the families grappled with grief, the Alaskan wilderness retained its secrets, forever concealing the details of that fateful flight. The missing rangers, once the guardians of Katmai National Park, became a part of its untamed legacy. And so the mystery of the missing float plane unfolded, leaving the community and the families haunted by unanswered questions, forever etched in the annals of Alaska's wilderness. Bobby Bishop. In the summer of 1956, Camp St. Malo welcomed Bobby Bishop, a spirited and resilient young boy who faced the world with a smile despite his hearing impairment. Born deaf, Bobby navigated the world with the help of a hearing aid that offered limited assistance, relying instead on sign language and lip reading to communicate. Despite his challenges, Bobby's indomitable spirit and zest for life endeared him to all who knew him. Accompanied by his devoted parents, Bobby embarked on a week-long adventure at Camp St. Malo, nestled amidst the picturesque beauty of the Colorado wilderness. Captured in photographs, Bobby's infectious grin and love for baseball captured the essence of his joyful personality, a testament to his unwavering optimism in the face of adversity. On August 15, 1958, the temperature fell from the afternoon high of 78 degrees to the mid-60s, which was perfect fishing weather at the camp. Bobby ventured out along the stream, armed with an old ice cream carton filled with worms and his trusty fishing rod. It was a familiar routine for Bobby, who relished the opportunity to immerse himself in the natural wonders of the campgrounds. As evening descended and the temperature dropped to a comfortable mid-60s, Bobby received a gentle reminder from Counselor Terry Cowan that it was time to gather his belongings and return to the main lodge for supper. With a nod of understanding, Bobby acknowledged the counselor's message, unaware of the harrowing ordeal ahead. Within an hour, Bobby vanished without a trace, his disappearance casting a pall of fear and uncertainty over the idyllic surroundings of Camp St. Malo. Frantic search efforts were launched, drawing upon the resources of military personnel, local police, and the National Park Service. However, Bobby remained elusive, his whereabouts a baffling mystery that defied explanation. Despite the exhaustive search efforts and meticulous investigations that followed, no trace of Bobby was ever found, leaving behind a void that could never be filled. Bobby Bishop's disappearance became a dark shadow that loomed over the cherished memories of Camp St. Malo. Nearly 1 year after Bobby Bishop's disappearance at Camp St. Malo, a grim discovery sent shockwaves through the community and reignited speculation surrounding the enigmatic case. Skeletal remains, believed to belong to Bobby, were found on a mountainside 3 miles from the camp, casting doubt on the initial theory that he simply got lost and succumbed to exposure in the wilderness. The revelation of Bobby's remains opened a new chapter in the investigation, prompting authorities to re-examine the circumstances surrounding his disappearance with renewed scrutiny. Questions that once lingered unanswered now demand attention, and the search for the truth created a new sense of urgency. Amidst the unfolding investigation, a startling revelation emerges, sending shockwaves through the community. It was discovered that some of the accused individuals in the broader investigation into child sexual abuse allegations against Catholic priests had worked as counselors at Camp St. Malo during the period when Bobby went missing. As the investigation unfolded, theories and speculations abounded, fueling public intrigue and suspicion. Was Bobby's disappearance somehow connected to the presence of these individuals at the camp? Was he a victim of foul play, his innocence exploited by those entrusted with his care? Or was his disappearance simply a tragic accident, unrelated to the sinister undercurrents that now threaten to overshadow his memory? Back on October 21, 2007, some hunters were camping in the Chimney Rock area of western Grand County, Colorado. They stumbled on a weird sight, a rifle leaning all alone against a pickup truck parked along a forest road. They remembered seeing a man around the truck the day before, but now it was just the rifle. This definitely creeped them out enough to call the Department of Wildlife. Later on, officers from the Department of Wildlife, or DOW, pulled up to the scene. They eyed the truck cautiously. It was locked tight, and everything seemed normal, except for the rifle laying abandoned on the ground beside it. Figuring it was better safe than sorry, they whipped out their cameras to snap some pictures of the weapon for evidence. Then, they carefully collected the rifle and stashed it securely in their patrol car for safekeeping. Now, they had a bit of a mystery to unravel. Who left the rifle behind, and why? Back at their office, the DOW officers ran a check on the truck's license plate, and a name popped up: Dale Banker, a resident of Denver. It turned out Banker had hunting licenses for the area where his truck was parked, and even another hunting area further south. So Banker was a legit hunter in the right place at the right time. But where was he? The days ticked by, and the DOW officers kept an eye on Banker's truck. However, it was all in vain. There was no sign of movement, no fresh tracks in the snow around it. It was like nobody had been near it. Finally, after 5 days of Banker not returning, they decided it was time to call in some backup. They contacted the sheriff's department to let them know about the abandoned truck. Unlike the DOW officers who only searched around the car, the sheriff's deputies took things a step further. They unlocked it and found a whole other scene: another gun, clothes for all kinds of weather, a sleeping bag, and a bunch of other personal things. It looked like Banker was all set up for an extended stay. The mystery deepened 2 days after the initial arrival of the deputies. A search party was launched to find Banker. This included a dozen members of search and rescue, along with their trusty bloodhound companions. They scoured the area around the truck all day, but Banker seemed to have vanished without a trace. This wasn't just a case of a forgotten rifle anymore. Seeing no signs of Banker after the search, the sheriff's department decided to take Banker's truck into custody. Meanwhile, they were determined to track Banker down. They figured his home might hold some clues, so they contacted the Denver Police Department and asked them to check it out. The Denver officers scoured Banker's place, and what did they find? Maps, all marked up with something. Unfortunately, these marked maps seemed more like a dead end than a helpful lead. Further investigation revealed no clues, as Banker did not have family or many friends in Denver. For years, Banker's disappearance remained a cold case up until September 2018. Some human remains were found by hunters in the White Slide area near Carter Mountain, which is relatively close to the Chimney Rock area of western Grand County. Sadly, after a thorough investigation, it turned out to be a different story. The remains weren't connected to Banker, and the puzzle of his disappearance remained unsolved. In the vast lands of northern Utah's high Uintas wilderness, a man from Melbourne named Eric Robinson embarked on a solo hiking expedition in the summer of 2011. Eric, a seasoned bushwalker with a passion for the great outdoors, had meticulously planned his adventure, setting out from Chipeta Lake Trailhead northwest of Vernal on July 28th. His goal was ambitious yet thrilling: to traverse over 60 miles along the challenging Highline Trail, with the ultimate destination of Mirror Lake beckoning him on August 7th. Eric's journey was not just about conquering the wilderness. It was proof of his love for exploration and his unyielding spirit of adventure. Armed with his hiking gear, a sense of determination, and an Australian flag sticker adorning his belongings, Eric ventured into the Uinta mountain range, ready to embrace the challenges and wonders that awaited him. However, as the days passed and Eric failed to reach his expected destination at Mirror Lake, concerns began to mount. On August 8th, a search operation was launched, mobilizing volunteers, search and rescue teams, and local authorities. The search area encompassed vast stretches of rugged terrain, characterized by steep cliffs, dense forests, and unpredictable weather conditions. Despite the exhaustive efforts of the search teams and the support of numerous assisting agencies, Eric remained elusive, leaving his loved ones and the searchers grappling with uncertainty and worry. As days turned into weeks and weeks into months, the search for Eric continued, but the vastness of the high Uintas wilderness posed formidable challenges. The The rugged landscape, coupled with the harsh environmental conditions, tested the resilience and perseverance of the searchers. Yet amidst the daunting task of combing through miles of wilderness, hope persisted, fueled by the unwavering determination to bring Eric home. Years passed and Eric's disappearance remained an unsolved mystery, haunting the hearts of his family, friends, and the community. The passage of time did little to diminish the fervent desire to find answers, but as the years turned into 5, hope began to wane, overshadowed by the grim reality that Eric might never be found. Then, in the summer of 2016, a ray of hope pierced through the veil of uncertainty when a family from Colville stumbled upon a discovery that would reignite the search for Eric. While exploring near Alsop Lake, the family spotted a peculiar sight amidst the rugged terrain: a backpack partially buried beneath a boulder, accompanied by what appeared to be a tent and scattered belongings. The significance of their discovery was not lost on them, and they wasted no time in alerting the authorities. As news of the discovery spread, renewed efforts were launched to ascertain the identity of the backpack's owner and unravel the mystery that shrouded his disappearance. Upon closer examination, the backpack revealed clues that hinted at its owner's identity: a sealed, bear-resistant can containing provisions, a trekking pole, and a hiking boot containing bone fragments. Among the belongings was a telltale sign: an Australian flag sticker, a poignant reminder of Eric's origins and his indomitable spirit. The discovery ignited a flurry of activity as investigators meticulously pieced together the puzzle surrounding Eric's disappearance. The location of the belongings, coupled with DNA evidence, led authorities to conclude that they finally found Eric after 5 years of searching. The revelation brought a bittersweet sense of closure to Eric's loved ones, offering them solace amidst the lingering pain of his absence. Yet even as the mystery of Eric's disappearance was seemingly solved, questions lingered about the circumstances that led to his tragic fate. How had Eric, an experienced bushwalker, met his end in the unforgiving wilderness of the high Uintas? Investigations revealed that Eric may have ventured into treacherous terrain near Alsop Pass, where steep cliffs and rugged terrain pose formidable obstacles to even the most seasoned hikers. The discovery prompted soul-searching reflections on the inherent risks of wilderness exploration and the profound bond between humans and nature. In the vast expanse of Kruger National Park, Checkers Mashego embarked on his routine patrol. He was a seasoned ranger, his years of experience etched into the lines of his weathered face. With each step, he traversed the familiar trails of the park, his senses attuned to the rhythm of the wilderness. On this particular evening in November, as Mashego made his way along the Unsakazi River in the Stolzneck section of the park, he encountered a sight that filled his heart with both wonder and concern. Nestled among the tall grasses by the riverbank was a family of elephants, their majestic forms illuminated by the soft glow of the setting sun. Mashego watched in awe as the elephants moved gracefully through the landscape, their movements fluid and deliberate. But as he observed them from a distance, he couldn't shake the feeling of unease that gnawed at the edges of his mind. Something seemed off and out of place in the otherwise tranquil scene before him. As Mashego continued his patrol, his senses on high alert, he noticed a subtle shift in the atmosphere around him. The air seemed to crackle with tension, a silent warning of unseen dangers lurking in the shadows. Despite his instincts urging him to retreat, Mashego pressed on, determined to fulfill his duty as a guardian of the park. As night fell and darkness enveloped the landscape, Mashego's unease grew, a nagging sense of foreboding that refused to be ignored. Every rustle of the leaves and every snap of a twig sent shivers down his spine, his senses heightened by the primal instinct to survive. Hours passed and Mashego found himself deep in the heart of the wilderness, far from the safety of his base camp. The moon cast an eerie glow over the landscape, illuminating the tangled undergrowth and casting long, twisting shadows across the forest floor. Suddenly, Mashego's radio crackled to life, breaking the silence of the night with a burst of static. His heart skipped a beat as he listened intently to the voice on the other end, a colleague reporting in from a nearby patrol. But as the message faded into the darkness, Mashego realized with a sinking feeling that he was alone, isolated in the vastness of the park, with no one to turn to for help. With a sense of urgency, Mashego quickened his pace, his footsteps echoing in the stillness of the night. But no matter how hard he tried, he couldn't shake the feeling of being watched, of being hunted by unseen predators lurking in the shadows. As dawn broke over the horizon, Mashego realized with a sinking feeling that he had lost his way. The landmarks that had once guided him were now obscured by the thick undergrowth, leaving him disoriented and vulnerable in the vast expanse of the park. Panic surged through Mashego's veins as he struggled to find his way back to safety. Every passing moment felt like an eternity, each step bringing him further into the heart of the wilderness and further from the safety of civilization. But despite his efforts, Mashego remained lost in the wilderness, his fate a mystery that would haunt the park's corridors for years to come. His family, his colleagues, and the entire community mourned his loss, their hearts heavy with the knowledge that he had ventured bravely into the unknown, never to return. And so the story of Checkers Mashego's disappearance became a cautionary tale, a reminder of the unforgiving nature of the wild and the fragile thread that binds us to the world around us. His memory lived on in the hearts of those who knew him, a proof of his courage, his dedication, and his spirit in the face of challenges.
It was about 9:20 in the morning, and Clayton McMartin was aware that he had some weather ahead of him, something any pilot knows could potentially mean trouble. Clayton wasn't the only one aboard the Beechcraft Bonanza B-36. His wife, Melissa, was with him. They were flying to Washington, where they planned to meet their beloved baby grandson and enjoy some quality family time before the hunting season began. This would be Clayton's first moose hunt, an occasion that excited them both. However, the tricky weather and the high terrain of Mount Leaper and Wrangell, St. Elias National Park and Preserve made their flight trickier than expected. On the morning of August 27, 2023, 59-year-old Clayton McMartin and his wife, 58-year-old Melissa McMartin, woke up ready to embark on the journey. Their airplane departed from Snowshoe Lake Airport in Glenallen, Alaska, at 8:50. Their destination was Ketchikan, Alaska, where they would make a first stop. Clayton and Melissa got married in 1986. They had 3 children. They were the kind of people who emanated joy. They loved their life and their adventures, which often took them beyond their wildest dreams. Perhaps that's why the couple had a deep admiration for Alaska, too. They appreciated the last frontier and all that it had to offer. In the past, Clayton and Melissa had spent 3 summers in Alaska, fishing, sightseeing, or simply spending time together. But no matter how much time they spent there, the couple kept marveling at how different Alaska was from their own home in Roanoke, Texas. Soon after they took off, Clayton, who piloted the aircraft, realized that high terrain caused radar contact and radio communications to be intermittent. At about 9:15 that morning, he told air traffic controllers that he was flying under Visual Flight Rules conditions, or VFR. VFR is a set of regulations under which a pilot operates an aircraft in weather conditions generally clear enough to allow the pilot to see where the aircraft is going. The McMartins were flying at an altitude of 12,500 feet. A controller with the Anchorage Air Route Traffic Control Center asked Clayton if he could climb higher. The man confirmed and told the controller he would climb to 13,500 feet. At 9:20, Clayton acknowledged he had some weather ahead of him. But according to the controller, the weather wasn't the only possible obstacle ahead. The terrain was also getting higher, and as such, Clayton's Bonanza needed to climb higher still. Clayton knew this wouldn't be a problem. His aircraft was well equipped. They had oxygen on board and the airplane was turbocharged, which meant it was suitable for higher altitudes. After climbing to 14,000 feet at about 9:30, Clayton got a heads up from the controller. All contact and monitoring would be lost for 10 minutes due to the weather conditions and altitude. Minutes later, when the controller asked Clayton to turn 20 degrees to avoid higher terrain, there was no response. Another pilot was asked to relay the message and Clayton answered. Once contact was re-established with the controller, McMartin asked to climb higher, to an altitude of 15,000 feet. The controller approved the request. 5 minutes later, the McMartin's plane was rapidly descending at 11,000 feet. Nobody answered the controller's frantic questions. The final radar target was at 8,875 feet. The next day, on August 28th, the wreckage was located in a heavily glaciated area with deep crevasses north of Mount Leaper, in the southern part of Wrangell, St. Elias National Park and Preserve, some 18 miles inland from Cape Yakataga, Alaska. But rescuers couldn't reach the area. The unpredictability of the weather, combined with the tricky terrain, prevented any form of rescue. On September 2nd, the National Park Service announced that responders' efforts had shifted from rescue to recovery. Chief Clint Johnson of the Alaska branch of the National Transportation Safety Board expressed his doubt about the likelihood of survival given the remote crash site and the weather conditions. A few days later, a park ranger managed to fly over the area during a break in the weather. What he saw further confirmed Johnson's suspicions. A large portion of the plane was located in a snow crater, with other plane fragments deeply embedded in a highly crevassed part of the Yahtzee Glacier, where snow continually accumulates. The wreckage was declared permanently inaccessible, and Wrangell St. Elias officials called off all recovery efforts.
It was 2020, and in the huge and breathtaking Kruger National Park, South Africa, there lived a dedicated field ranger named Checkers Mashego. Checkers was known for his bravery and commitment to protecting the wildlife in the park. He was unaware that one fateful evening would turn his routine patrol into a mysterious disappearance. It was the early evening of Tuesday, November 17, 2020, when Checkers set out on his routine patrol along the Nzikazi River in the Stoll's Neck section of Kruger National Park. The sun was setting, projecting a warm glow on the beautiful park. Checkers, clad in his full ranger uniform, carried his rifle, cell phone, and radio, ready to face the challenges of the wild. As night fell, Checkers failed to arrive at the agreed meeting point, causing concern among his fellow rangers. The section ranger Stoll's Neck and his ranger corps began a thorough search through the night. With the support of a Sandparks helicopter, K-9 unit, and additional ranger force, they searched the vast boundaries of Kruger National Park to find their missing comrade. The next day passed and hope began to wane. Despite their best efforts, Checkers Mashego remained elusive, lost somewhere in the heart of Kruger National Park. Sandparks officials, in coordination with the South African Police Service, or SAPS, registered a missing persons report. Checkers' family was informed, adding a layer of worry to an already tense situation. The helicopter hovered above the limitless park. The K-9 unit sniffed for any trace, and rangers scoured the wilderness. Yet Checkers Mashego seemed to have vanished without a trace. The mystery deepened, and whispers of uncertainty were buzzing through the park. A depressing discovery added a new chapter to the story a month later. Human remains, including part of a skull, were found at the Kruger National Park. Alongside these remains were items suspected to belong to Checkers Mashego. The investigation teams from SAPS and the Environmental Crime Unit intensified their efforts, combing the area for possible clues. Colonel Donald Umdaluli of the SAPS confirmed that an investigation was underway to determine the circumstances of Checkers' disappearance. However, the twist in the tale came with the results of the DNA tests conducted on the skull. It was not Checkers Mashego's skull, but that of another woman, unraveling the mystery further. Checkers' wife, Nomsa Maseko, spoke of her family's financial hardships since his disappearance. 3 long years had passed, yet the case remained unsolved, leaving the Kruger National Park and its inhabitants haunted by the mystery of the missing field ranger. In the cruel African wilderness, where each rustle of leaves and every distant roar held secrets, the unanswered questions about Checkers Mashego's disappearance are still looking to be solved. Bobby Panknin. Almost half a century ago, the tranquil beauty of a hiking trip in Spokane turned into a nightmare for the Panknin family. The family, consisting of Bobby, his brothers Jim and Bill, and their mother Edna, embarked on a hike near Deep Lake Resort in northern Stevens County. seeking solace in nature's embrace. As the family traversed a rugged logging road, the allure of a nearby creek beckoned Bill, the eldest among the three brothers, to investigate. Concerned for his safety, Edna accompanied Bill, instructing Jim to remain on the road with young Bobby. It was a decision rooted in maternal caution, an attempt to safeguard her children from potential dangers. However, fate had other plans. Jim followed suit as Bill and Edna ventured towards the Laughing Brook, perhaps fueled by curiosity or a desire for adventure, leaving Bobby alone on the road. Bill and Edna returned from their brief excursion, expecting to reunite with Jim and Bobby, but they were met with an unsettling silence. Bobby was nowhere to be found. Panic ensued as they searched for Bobby, their calls echoing through the dense foliage unanswered. Despite their proximity to the road, Bobby had vanished without a trace, leaving his family bewildered and distraught. The passage of mere minutes felt like an eternity as they scoured the area, each passing second intensifying their anguish. The brothers' initial assumption that Bobby had disappeared shortly after their departure proved tragically inaccurate. As hours turned into days and days into weeks, the search for Bobby stretched far beyond the confines of the forest, captivating the hearts and minds of the local community. Without tangible leads, speculation ran rampant, with theories ranging from accidental wandering to foul play. The haunting uncertainty surrounding Bobby's fate cast a long shadow over the Panknin family, leaving them trapped in a perpetual state of grief and uncertainty. Despite exhaustive search efforts by law enforcement and volunteers alike, Bobby remained elusive, his disappearance shrouded in mystery. The passage of time only deepened the wound, as hope dwindled and the likelihood of a resolution grew increasingly remote. Bobby's father, Howard Panknin, was fishing with his eldest child, Ted, when news of Bobby's disappearance reached him. Despite his tireless efforts, Bobby was nowhere to be seen, his fate shrouded in uncertainty. Amidst the chaos and grief, Bobby's mother, Edna Panknin, found herself unjustly shouldering the blame for her son's disappearance. Despite her unwavering love and devotion to her children, she became a target for criticism and scrutiny, her every action dissected and scrutinized by those seeking answers in the void left by Bobby's absence. For Jim, the guilt of Bobby's disappearance lingered like a shadow, a constant reminder of what could have been. He constantly grapples with the notion that he should have stayed with his younger brother, protecting him from whatever unseen danger lurks in the wilderness. The brothers rarely spoke of the incident, yet their understanding spoke volumes. They knew that Bobby's disappearance was not the result of negligence or fault, but rather a tragic twist of fate that forever altered the course of their lives. Howard and Edna, despite their grief, remained pillars of strength for their family. Their unwavering love and resilience in the face of unimaginable loss were a beacon of hope in the darkest of times. Though their hearts ached with longing for their missing son, they found solace in the knowledge that Bobby's memory would live on in their hearts forever. The eldest son, Ted, never stopped wondering about his brother's fate. As the years passed and Bobby's disappearance remained unsolved, he couldn't help but entertain the possibility that his brother may still be alive, living under a different name with another family. The thought haunted him, yet he clung to it like a lifeline, refusing to let go of the hope that they would be reunited one day. Despite the tragedy, the Panknin family remained steadfast in their love for the great outdoors. While they never returned to Deep Lake, where the incident occurred, the memories of their camping trips remained etched in their hearts, a bittersweet reminder of happier times. On October 5, 2013, 74-year-old Barnett Zeldin and his wife went out to have a fancy dinner of coconut shrimp and tilapia at the Chart House in Atlantic City's Golden Nugget Casino. It was their wedding anniversary, and since they had been married for 50 years, it was only right that they toast to the years ahead together. Unfortunately, the couple never got to share another anniversary together. Just 2 days after their lovely celebration, Zeldin vanished without a trace. On the morning of that day, Zeldin informed his wife that he was heading for Wharton Forest Park in Washington Township, Burlington County, New Jersey. His plan was to set up his tree stand for the upcoming deer hunting season. He even stopped by the Audubon Gun Club in Woodland to sign in before going into the woods for his mission. Typically, he should have been back at the club that same night, but nobody saw him return. Now, Zeldin's wife tried calling him that night, but it went straight to voicemail. At first, she wasn't too worried. Zeldin wasn't exactly known for checking in on the first day. Plus, he was a seasoned hunter of different kinds of prey. In his home, there were several hunting trophies that showed how good he is, including a stuffed 900-pound grizzly bear he killed in Alaska. All things considered, she probably felt Zeldin just got too comfy in his tree stand and forgot his phone. After all, with all those hunting trophies under his belt, Zeldin knew what he was doing out there. He'd be back safe and sound, no doubt. But by the second day, when her call still went to voicemail, a knot started to form in her stomach. This wasn't like Zeldin. He wouldn't just disappear for days on a hunting trip, not without letting her know. By the third day, that knot had turned into full-blown worry. Knowing something was terribly wrong, Zeldin's wife drove down to the Audubon Gun Club on the fourth day. There, her worst fear was confirmed. Zeldin hadn't come back. Without wasting another minute, they threw together a search party and alerted the authorities. Soon, the New Jersey State Police and Park Police joined forces, throwing everything they had at the search. Canine units and helicopters scoured the vast wilderness of Wharton Forest, a massive 617-acre area. It wasn't long before they found Zeldin's truck, a dusty 1992 Chevy Blazer, parked near his usual hunting spot. However, the details were unsettling. The car keys were still in the ignition, something you only do if you're planning on being right back. Inside, they found his phone, wallet, and even his trusty dog, who went everywhere with him. There was even bait, corn and molasses, untouched in the truck. The windows were also down, which both explained how the dog might have survived, but it also painted a chilling picture. With the truck as the lead, the search team held on to hope. Maybe Zeldin was just disoriented somewhere nearby, maybe even injured. But then came another blow. They found out Zeldin had type 2 diabetes and a history of strokes. Without his medication, surviving out there for days looked grim. The search continued, now not just for a living Zeldin, but for any sign of him at all. Despite the exhaustive efforts of law enforcement agents, they hit a dead end in their search for Zeldin, prompting them to call off the search. However, undeterred by this setback, Zeldin's family, friends, and neighbors took matters into their own hands, conducting daily searches. They plastered signs in the area featuring Zeldin's photo and rallied volunteers to go door to door, questioning residents about any sightings or information that could shed light on his disappearance. As a last desperate move, Zeldin's family even brought in psychic Barbara Mackey from Toms River to help out. The psychic had a hunch about where Barnett might be. She pinpointed an area 5 miles northwest of his vehicle, which triggered a new set of searches for Zeldin's family. However, like the previous instances, this also yielded nothing. His disappearance is still a total mystery, and folks in the wilderness and hunting circles still talk about it. Melissa McDevitt was a remarkable woman who had an insatiable love for the great outdoors. Despite battling a rare disorder that often left her fatigued and in pain, she refused to let it hinder her adventurous spirit. From a young age, Melissa found solace in the wilderness, escaping the harsh realities of bullying and discrimination she faced in school. Nature became her sanctuary, a place where she felt truly alive and free. As she grew older, Melissa's passion for exploration only intensified. Armed with her camera, she embarked on daring expeditions to some of the world's most remote and untouched landscapes. From the rugged mountains of the Rockies to the lush rainforests of South America, Melissa captured the raw beauty of the natural world with breathtaking precision. Her photographs told stories of wilderness and awe-inspiring vistas, captivating the imaginations of all who beheld them. In December, Melissa set her sights on Vancouver Island, eager to experience its rugged beauty firsthand. It was a crisp winter morning when she embarked on her solo hike, the air tinged with the promise of snow. Melissa had planned to return home for the holidays after her adventure, but fate had other plans in store. Hours turned into days, and Melissa failed to return from her hike as scheduled. Concerned, her family reached out to the authorities, sparking a massive search and rescue operation. Volunteers from across the island rallied together, combing through dense forests and treacherous terrain in search of their missing friend. Despite their best efforts, days stretched into weeks, and there was still no sign of Melissa. With each passing moment, the weight of uncertainty grew heavier, casting a shadow of despair over the island community. Yet they refused to give up hope, clinging to the belief that Melissa would be found alive and well. Months passed, and still Melissa remained elusive. Yet the search persisted, fueled by unwavering determination and a shared commitment to bringing her home. Then, almost a year after her disappearance, a breakthrough occurred. A hiker stumbled upon Melissa's cell phone buried beneath a pile of leaves, a small but significant clue in the search for answers. Hope was rekindled, and search teams redoubled their efforts, scouring every inch of the island with renewed vigor. Their tireless dedication paid off when, at long last, Melissa's remains were discovered hidden deep within the dense forest. It was a bittersweet moment, a mixture of relief and sorrow for those who had tirelessly searched for her. The news of Melissa's fate echoed across the island, leaving a mark on all who had known her. Her family and friends were devastated by the loss, yet comforted by the outpouring of support from the community. Strangers became allies, bound together by a common goal: to bring Melissa home. In the aftermath of her passing, Melissa's memory lived on in the hearts of those she had touched. She was remembered not only for her adventurous spirit and love of nature, but also for her courage in the face of her challenges. Her photographs served as proof of her passion for exploration, inspiring others to seek out the beauty of the world around them. The sun rose over Rocky Mountain National Park, illuminating the rugged landscape below. Jeff Christensen, a park ranger with a heart as big as the mountains themselves, began his patrol on July 29, 2005. He was a man of the wilderness, born and raised in Minnesota, where forests stretch for miles and lakes glisten like jewels in the sun. From a young age, Jeff had felt a deep connection to nature, spending his days exploring the great outdoors with a sense of wonder and adventure. As Jeff set out on his patrol that fateful day, the air was crisp and cool, carrying with it the scent of pine and the promise of adventure. He was a seasoned ranger, well-versed in the ways of the wilderness, and he approached each day with a sense of purpose and dedication. For Jeff, being a park ranger wasn't just a job, it was a way of life, a calling that had led him to Rocky Mountain National Park, where he felt most at home. As he wandered deeper into the heart of the park, Jeff couldn't help but marvel at the beauty that surrounded him. Tall peaks loomed in the distance, their snow-capped summits reaching toward the sky. The landscape was alive with the sounds of wildlife, from the chirping of birds to the rustling of leaves in the gentle breeze. It was a place of beauty where nature reigned supreme, and Jeff felt truly alive. But amidst the beauty, there lingered a sense of unease, a whisper of doubt that danced on the edge of Jeff's consciousness. It was a feeling he couldn't quite shake, like a shadow lurking just beyond the reach of the sun. As the day wore on and Jeff ventured deeper into the wilderness, the feeling only grew stronger, gnawing at him like a hungry beast. No one, not even Jeff, knew that it would be the last time that he'd be seen alive. Hours passed and night fell over the wilderness like a shroud. Jeff was nowhere to be found, his fate shrouded in mystery and uncertainty. As dawn broke over Rocky Mountain National Park, a sense of dread hung heavy in the air, a chilling reminder of the dangers that lurked in the wilderness. The search for Jeff would become the largest in the history of the park, drawing in hundreds of volunteers and search teams from across the country. But despite their efforts, Jeff's disappearance would remain one of the greatest mysteries in the annals of Rocky Mountain National Park. Days passed, but there was still no sign of Jeff. His family and friends refused to give up hope, clinging to the belief that somewhere, somehow, he was still out there, waiting to be found. Then, on August 6, 2005, a hiker stumbled upon a grisly discovery: the lifeless body of Jeff Christensen, lying amidst the rugged beauty of the Mummy Range. The news sent shockwaves through the park community, casting a pall of sadness over the once vibrant landscape. But even in death, Jeff's legacy lived on. His dedication to the wilderness he loved inspired a wave of change within the park, leading to the introduction of high-visibility safety apparel for field rangers. It was a fitting tribute to a man who had dedicated his life to protecting others, even at the cost of his own. As Jeff's family and friends gathered to mourn his passing, they took solace in the knowledge that he died doing what he loved, exploring the wild and beauty of Rocky Mountain National Park. And though his loss was keenly felt, his spirit would forever linger in the whisper of the wind and the rustle of the leaves, a silent guardian watching over the wilderness he loved so dearly.